Hey everyone, how are we doing? It is good to be here. I am excited about what we're going to do right now. As we gather today, I want you to know this. If there is any blessing, any momentum, any impact, any tangible difference whatsoever that's being made by your local church, someone somewhere paid a price. Someone somewhere paid a price. When I served as a youth pastor in Buffalo, New York, I remember listening to Reverend Carl Eastlack speak in hushed, revered tones for Reverend Burdick, the pastor who planted Eastern Hills Wesleyan. When I served as a connections pastor in Rock Island, Illinois, I recall Reverend John Bray speaking with great respect for Reverend Roy Gibbs, the pastor who planted Heritage Wesleyan Church. Even today, I'm honored to have my church planting pastor here on this platform, Pastor Wayne Schmidt. When I was 10 years old, he came to my house and invited my family to church. This new church plant in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So to see that video of Chance in my zip code, 49507, was unbelievably encouraging to me today. Can we ever say thank you enough to the men and women who planted our churches? Can we ever say it enough? So this afternoon, actually this morning, I thought we were presenting in the afternoon. I'm honored to recognize a district hero, one who significantly sacrificed to expand God's kingdom footprint in the state of Kansas. Though he's no longer with us, this pastor's life and ministry continues to positively impact the local church that he planted. Reverend Yorton Clark Sr. was born on April 23rd, 1928 in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, to Henry and Isabel Clark. Reverend Clark attended and graduated from Milton Vale College in 1949. Does that sound familiar, Reverend Caldwell? Yes, Milton Vale, 1949. I believe you knew Reverend Clark. Yes, I did. Yeah. That's incredible. That's awesome. On August 3rd, 1950, Reverend Clark married his college sweetheart, Thelma Hotchkiss. Yorton and Thelma were married for over 62 years, had 5 children, one of whom is here today and had no idea we were doing this. Yorty, how you doing? Yorty, would you stand? This is Reverend Clark's son, Yorton. Dr. Yorton Clark. Yorty somehow discovered that I was making a presentation today, so Yorty, I publicly ask you to forgive me for lying. I'm so sorry. Mostly. Reverend Clark pastored for over 50 years in the Wesleyan Church, serving 7 churches in Athens, Ohio, Rudd, Iowa, Albert Lee, Minnesota, Waterloo, Iowa, Dayton, Ohio, Lansing, Michigan, and Ottawa, Kansas. Oh wait, one more. Olathe Wesleyan Church. In 1985, I was a sophomore in high school. In 1985, while serving in Ottawa, Reverend Clark became restless. While deliberating with other members of the Kansas District's Church Planting Committee concerning potential planters and locations, Reverend Clark suddenly began to sense that God was calling him to plant a church in Olathe, Kansas, a community about 25 miles northeast of his current ministry assignment. Now might be a perfect moment to pause and remind everyone that Reverend Clark was 58 years old when he sensed the call to plant a church. At an age when many people begin sensing the siren song of retirement, when many people begin more intently tracking their pension funds and IRAs, when many begin planning out a subtle strategy for coasting into the golden years of retirement, Reverend Clark dreamed of planting a church for people who felt marginalized and overlooked by the existing religious establishments in Olathe. When he told his son, Dr. Yorton Clark Jr., about his thoughts, the ones rattling around in his head, Yorty, who was ultimately very, very supportive, initially responded and said, "Dad, you're crazy." You're crazy. But when he told his bride, when he told Thelma, she immediately responded with, "Let's go for it, Yorton. Let's go for it." So in the fall of 1986, Olathe Wesleyan Church was planted, and Reverend Clark, in the latter years of his life, was often known to reflect and say some of the most fun Thelma and I ever had was spent planting Olathe Wesleyan Church. And here we are, 31 years later, significantly benefiting from that dream becoming reality. We're currently partnered with a church planting network in Kenya. In the last 5 years, over 31 churches have been planted. And we are now a part of the church planting network. And we're excited to see where God would plant. In fact, last night we met with Madeline, saying, what can we do to come alongside her work, her burgeoning work in Garden City? We're so excited about it. And Josh Siders, where is Josh? Man, I love his passion. Love it. And I want next year for all of us to stand when we say we're partnering somehow with church planting. So, today, on behalf of Olathe Wesleyan Church, and in honor of Reverend and Mrs. Yorton and Thelma Clark, I'm going to be presenting an inaugural award. We're calling it the Sacrificial Generosity Award. This is something that we as a staff at Olathe Wesleyan said we want to do for our district conference. And we want to give it to a district church pastor. Our desire as a local church and as a district is to honor those who have demonstrated what we consider to be sacrificial generosity in order to expand God's kingdom footprint in the state of Kansas. Therefore, at this time, it's a surprise to this person, to these two people actually. It would be my great pleasure to invite Reverend and Mrs. Steve and Samantha McVey to the platform. Would you please welcome them? I think I lied to you as well. I don't lie all the time. I really don't. Pastor, pray for me. Pray for me. Let me talk about these two people for a moment. In 2000, Reverend Steve McVey arrived in Lamont, Kansas to serve as senior pastor. And by the way, Lamont, as long as we're talking about planters, Lamont was planted by Reverend H.K. Busby. Lamont, in case you're unaware, I don't know that you are, but I've only been in the district 3 years, and I've never been to Lamont, is quite rural, with an unofficial population of 36. And I say unofficial because I had to actually call and ask Steve this week, since the Census Bureau doesn't track Lamont, Kansas. I had no idea. You say one in every zip code. They better start tracking everything. But over the past 17 years, Lamont Wesleyan has grown from an average attendance of around 57 to an average of around 336. That's 10 times the population of Lamont. Steve's work in Lamont has become the stuff of legend. I think many of us know this. The church has regularly been highlighted in denominational conferences, articles, gatherings. Steve has often been contacted to say, how do you do it? How are you making this happen? I grew up on a 4-lane road in the city. I'm a city boy all the way. Steve, I don't know how you do it, but I have great admiration and respect for what you do. It blows my mind. The secret, of course, when Steve's asked, how do you do it? It's the people. That's the answer. It's the people. While Steve was candidating for the position, he remarked to one of our district pastors, I won't out that person, but his name is Jim. Steve said to Jim, you couldn't have talked the place down enough, but you couldn't have talked the people up nearly enough. Steve truly believes in people, and the people truly believe in God and the mission of Lamont Wesleyan Church. Over the years, Lamont has undergone building campaigns. They've ministered in Burlington. They've overcome a fire. And most recently, they've launched New Strong. In fact, this fall, Radiant Life, the name of Lamont's campus, New Strong, if you haven't picked that up yet, Radiant Life will transition and begin operating independently as a Wesleyan church within our district. And as this transition occurs, we invite you to pray for Pastor Ryan and for the entire Radiant Life Church. Love the video, love the baptisms. But like Reverend Clark, some have told Pastor Steve that he's crazy. After all, Lamont Wesleyan, when you think about it, they'll be giving nearly 2/3 of their congregation away. And there is already talk of planning again in the near future. So why on earth would an established church and a veteran, seasoned pastor, why would they make such a selfless decision, choosing to give people, ministry, and financial resources away? The answer, if you haven't guessed it, is sacrificial generosity. Sacrificial generosity. Steve, we love you. We appreciate you. However, that being said, we want to talk to the star for a moment. We want to honor your wife. I will celebrate 25 years of marriage next week. I can't believe I found someone that will put up with me all those years. And Steve, I'm just as shocked that you did as well. But Samantha, we want to make sure that you understand that our thanks and praise is clearly noted to you regarding the sacrifices that you've made as a pastor's spouse. And by the way, not all spouses are female. Isn't that right, Pastor Janetta? We're certain of the impact you've made on Lamont Wesleyan and Radiant Life. We're certain you've prayed for Steve, that you've encouraged him in his more frustrated moments, that you've been his wise counsel and sounding board in both the best and worst of times. We're also certain you've contributed significantly to the church's missional impulse. I know this isn't easy. She's teaching children who are now going to be going to another church, and she's being generous. We thank you for your sacrificial generosity and your immeasurable contributions. Thank you. So we've commissioned a piece of art for the two of you, which, though not complete, it's not here. Can't believe it's not here. We're so heartbroken about that. But you'll see it. It will include life-size cast iron hands, which represent the open-handed sacrificial generosity that you both expressed at Lamont Wesleyan. When complete, we believe this art will vividly capture the essence of Jesus' teaching, which says it is more blessed to give than to receive. And we also have gifts. Steve, we have a gift for you as lead pastor at Lamont Wesleyan. We want you to use it however you would like. You're very rural. I'm thinking you'll use it as gas money to go to Sam's Club. Or to drive up to Olathe and take out some of your favorite pastors for lunch or coffee. And Samantha, we have a gift for you as well. We want you to use it however you would like. Do not spend it on Steve. Do not spend it on the church. Spend it on yourself. Do not spend it on school. Do not spend it on your children. Spend it on you. And if we're being completely honest, we hope you get your hands on Steve's money as well. We also... It's already done? All right. You're a good man. We also have a gift for your church. This is just for your church. And here's what we'd like you to not do. We'd like you to not just put it in the tithes and offerings. We'd like you to throw a party in Lamont. Throw a thank you celebration. Say, way to go, church. Amen. Way to go, Lamont. So in closing, I'd like to share something that happened just 2 days ago. Pastor Jim, Pastor Janetta, and I went over to Thelma Clark's home, Reverend Clark's widow. Went over to her home, and she recently had installed a security system where her children can actually look and hear everything going on in almost every room of the house. And Yordi has access to that camera system. And he said to us while we're sitting in the living room trying to keep this under wraps, he goes, "Well, hi guys, looks like you're having a party." And Jim went over and unplugged it. But 2 days ago we stopped by and we wanted to share the details of today's moment, this award. She was unable to travel. She was unable to be with us, but she is so excited, and we wanted to ensure that she knew what would be taking place to honor her, her husband, Lamont Wesleyan. And as we reflected together on Olathe Wesleyan Church's beginnings, as we informed her of Lamont Wesleyan's current undertaking, tears began to fill her eyes as she thanked God for his continued faithfulness over the years. But then she said something that struck all of us. Thelma gently stated, "I wish we could have done more." She's 86 years old, and she said, "I wish we could have done more." And there's this brief moment of silence, and I hate silence. So I jumped in, and I said, "Oh, Thelma, you've done more than enough." and I knew I was in trouble. I knew she didn't like my answer. When her head quickly snapped and turned my way, she looked me straight in the eyes and she said, "Oh, Pastor, it's never enough. It's never enough. Kansas District Conference, it's never enough. Even our best expressions of sacrificial generosity are never enough in light of the gospel, in light of all that Christ has done for us." So thank you, Steve. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Lamont Wesleyan Church. Might we all continue to express sacrificial generosity. Thank you. Let's all